So there are a couple of them about eating other foods in moderation. So somebody who likes to eat meat and eggs, what's a good animal protein for such a person? What is its reasonable frequency per week? 1 to 2 times? Dr. Patel?
Not think of food as fat, protein, carbohydrate. So thinking of meat as the only source of protein, we are starting off with the wrong planum there, right? But again, everybody has a different background, different cultural conditioning. So making drastic changes don't work. So what I tell my patients is, let's say you're having meat 2 or 3 times a day, going down to once a day is a start, and then working your way down to having it maybe 2 or 3 times a week is even a further step, and then maybe going to having once a week 4 or 6 ounces of some form of meat, is even further. I don't think there is one meat better than others. Yes, obviously anything that is fried or battered up, with flour is gonna make it even more worse. So something that is baked or broiled, not broiled, but baked or poached. Because again, when you use cooking techniques which are very high temperature, um, it does tend to cause more issues in the food. So baking can also involve high temperatures. So actually, the best would be steamed or poached, uh, small portions of meat, um, as less number of times a week that you can. But again, not focusing on just how much you're cutting back on the meat, but focusing on how much more you can add into your daily routine. So how much more vegetables and fruits and beans can you eat? That really makes the difference, because that's the fiber rich foods, and that makes the biggest difference. So don't think of the changes as, okay, I need to cut this out, cut this out, cut this out, because that creates a negative mindset. Think of, I'm going to be adding a lot of these things more, and I'll cut back on the meat step by step. That will actually be more sustainable.
Couple of other questions. One is on drink milk and eat cheese. What's a reasonable amount per week for that?
um, Again, if the goal is to help reverse insulin resistance, then and if you give me the option of dairy, which includes milk and cheese, versus meat, I would actually suggest to stop the dairy first and then slowly work on your way down with the meat. The reason being, dairy is loaded with lots of hormones, pesticides. You also find a lot of IGF-1, which is insulin growth factor 1, which is also a very growth promoting molecule. And when you have cheese, you have even more concentration of all those foods, because it takes a whole lot of milk to be turned into a small block of cheese. And so you're also getting more concentration of casein and IGF-1 and hormones and pesticides. And that really does a toll on your gut. And again, leaky gut, I'm just mentioning that word, but that's a whole different topic by itself. So uh,
There's another
if
one here.
possible, I would suggest to stop the dairy completely. Again, if it's not practically possible, I would suggest cutting it down step by step, as you would do with the meat.
There's another one here on coffee. It is pure black coffee and or mixed with low fat or non-fat milk only, no sugar added. What are your thoughts?
So I think there is a lot of data coming out regarding the benefits of coffee for cognition, for overall health, brain health. And so I don't drink tea or coffee, but because I haven't don't have that routine. But if you like to have a nice cup of coffee or tea in the morning, or maybe one more cup in later in the day, it is a good habit. The studies actually show you should be having 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day. which I'm still trying to understand more about. But I would say this, um, you have to make sure that it's organic coffee, so you're not getting the pesticides. And second, it's a shade grown coffee, meaning coffee that's conventionally grown in a lot of sunlight is going to have more tannic acids and less antioxidants, versus coffee that's grown under a canopy of big trees or on the side of a hill, under the shade of the hill in the mountain, is going to have more antioxidants and less tannic acid. So you do want to, and it's easily available now. All you need to do is Google two words, organic and shade grown coffee, and you will find lots of options. So having 1 or 2 cups of that, maybe more based on the data that's coming out, is great. Black is best. If you need to add something, I would suggest use unsweetened plant milk, like organic almond milk, or organic non-GMO soy milk, or rice milk, because you don't want to add the casein or heavy cream and make undo the benefits of the coffee. So if you can drink it black, that's great. If you need to add something, then try to use a plant-based milk. If you need a sweetener, rather than adding sugar, I would suggest make some date paste. So you basically soak some dates in water and then blend it into a paste and keep it in a mason jar in your refrigerator, so you can use that as your liquid sweetener. Or the second option, if you don't want to do that extra step, is to keep some pure maple syrup, and you can use a little bit of that. Again, not overdoing it. The maple syrup does have a little lower glycemic index compared to honey and agave, but the best is black. If you can, you can add some plant milk if you need to, and if you need to add some sweetener, then um, date paste is better, but if you need to, then you can use maple syrup.
So the next question is, does lifting weights help diabetes at all? It seems like it might, because skeletal muscle is a major consumer of glucose, or does it not give you any more than other kinds of exercise?
Um, yes, obviously resistance training will help build your muscle mass, which is also one of the main consumers of glucose in the body. And when you exercise, your insulin resistance will improve. But I do want to spend 30 seconds and try to explain the difference between aerobic exercise and anaerobic or resistance exercise. So when you are doing jogging for maybe a mile or 2 miles, or going for a bike ride, or just a brisk walk, you're mostly in an aerobic environment in terms of the oxidation of your glucose. And in that situation, you'll find the glucose tends to go down faster, especially if you're on medications. You may feel hypoglycemic if you did not change your medications. But with resistance training, when you push weights, initially in the first 30 minutes, maybe 2 4 hours, you will see sugars running higher, because your body is in a sympathetic mode, overdrive, because of the exercise, and that causes the sugars to actually go up. Now eventually later in the day and next day, your sugars will still improve, and over time, as you build more muscle mass, you will also have better insulin functioning. But if you're tracking your sugars through a continuous glucose monitor, you may see a spike in your sugars if you are doing weights. So I typically tell my patients to do a sandwich model, where they do 5-10 minutes of aerobic, and then they do 20-30 minutes of weights, and then they again end it with 5-10 minutes of aerobic, like just walking or biking. That allows them to kind of lower off that sugar spike that could happen from the weight. But over time, and it definitely helps with insulin resistance.
How does yoga fit into that equation?
Yoga, I think, is a more holistic. We narrow down yoga to a very simple word, but it's actually a whole system in its being. And the whole Patanjali Yoga Sutras, if you understand, only 10 or 12 of those talk about food, or not food. Only 10 of 12 talk about the different asanas, but majority of the sutras actually focus on the whole lifestyle. So your sleep, your mindset, your breathing, all those things. So yes, yoga is a complete system. If you are following that level of breathing and that degree of flexibility of your body, and also working on the right food and the mindset, it works. So there are a few yogasanas which are beneficial. There is one called Ardha Matsyendrasana, which is considered beneficial for the pancreas and the abdominal organs in general. And then a pranayam called Kapalbhati pranayam, which is going to involve your stomach movements quite a bit, abdominal movements. That is also very effective in helping with reducing visceral fat. But again, yoga is not just a word or one posture, it's a whole system.
What are your thoughts on boiling vegetables versus stir frying with olive oil?
Like I said before, when you use moisture-based cooking methods, you preserve more nutrients and you get to cook them at a lower temperature, versus if you use high temperature cooking, you do tend to reduce nutrients. And secondly, if you're adding olive oil itself has a low smoking point. So when you heat it up, it actually turns more rancid and creates more free radicals, which we don't want. It creates inflammation in the body. So yes, if you want to have flavor of the olive oil, it may be better to steam your vegetables and then maybe drizzle a little bit on top rather than heating it up in the olive oil if you want to have the olive oil. I would rather prefer eating the olives because you get the fiber and the fats and the antioxidants, and not just pure liquid fat in terms of the olive oil. But as I said, if you want to use olive oil, you would rather be better off steaming the vegetables or boiling them and then drizzling it as a flavor. Um, but if you heat it up, it actually creates more free radicals.
So there's another question. For someone with diabetes for nearly 30 years with oral medicines such as metformin and Prandin and A1C around 6.7, what can be done to bring the A1C further down and prevent complications?
Again, this is a specific question. I'm going to
Yes.
give a generalized answer. Like I said before, that um, as you work on improving your nutrition, you work on improving your sleep routine, your activity, your sugars will start improving. You have to work with your physician to make sure that the medications are appropriately tapered down as you do that. And also you want to check a lab called C-peptide to see where your insulin production stands, how much insulin your body is still making. So if you have a C-peptide above 1, it gives you a fair chance that you can potentially, come off the medications with the right lifestyle. But again, as I said, it's a specific question. I'm going to give a generalized, impression of what can be done.